If you've ever felt drained, unfocused, or like something inside you is slipping away, there's a reason. And almost no one talks about it. Have you ever looked around and felt like most men are drifting? Not fully awake, not fully alive, just moving through life on autopilot? It's almost as if they're running on a script they never chose. There's a line from Gurdjieff that hits this perfectly. Man lives in a waking dream, carried by mechanical impulses. And the craziest part is that most men don't even realize it's happening. Think about it. Every day, men follow the same patterns, the same urges, the same reactions. They feel like they're making choices, but they're actually being pulled. They don't know what's guiding them, only that they're chasing something that never leaves them fulfilled. And for many, the strongest of those impulses is desire, an instinct powerful enough to steer their entire life without them ever noticing. Now, society tells men that giving in to every urge is healthy, that release equals freedom, that pleasure is just part of being human. But what if that narrative is only half the story? What if there's another perspective, an older, deeper one, that suggests men are giving away more than they realize? Gurdjieff proposed a radical idea, that men contain within themselves a kind of inner resource, a subtle form of energy more precious than anything external. Not mystical, not magical, just a different way of talking about life force, drive, presence, clarity. And he believed that most men waste it before they ever discover what it can become. The big point wasn't that pleasure is wrong. The point was that unconscious habits shape unconscious lives. If a man is always reacting to the same impulse, then who's really in charge? Him or the impulse? And here's where things get fascinating. When a man chooses restraint, even temporary, even partial, something shifts. Observers throughout history have noted this. Monks, warriors, athletes, philosophers, they all spoke about how discipline sharpened the mind, steadied the emotions, and amplified determination. Modern language might call it mental clarity, focused energy, or self-mastery. The label doesn't matter. The effect does. Instead of drifting, the man becomes more present, more grounded, more capable of directing his life instead of being directed by it. Imagine taking a force that usually pulls you outward and instead turning it inward. Instead of losing momentum, you build it. Instead of feeling drained, you feel charged. It's like switching from being powered by scattered impulses to being powered by a central engine. Men who experiment with this don't need anyone else to tell them what's happening. They feel it. Their attention sharpens. Their emotional baseline rises. Their motivation stabilizes. Even their body language changes. They walk differently, speak differently, and think differently because they're no longer being tossed around by the same cravings. This isn't about perfection. It isn't about becoming some cold, detached monk. It's about discovering what happens when you stop leaking your potential through habits you never questioned. When you're not controlled by impulse, you begin to notice how many parts of your life were being shaped by that one factor. Your goals, your relationships, your drive, your focus, even your confidence. It's all connected. Men who step into this level of self-command often describe a kind of inner gravity, a weight, a presence. And people feel it. Not because the man is doing anything special, but because he's no longer scattered. He carries himself with intention. His yes means yes. His no means no. He becomes someone whose decisions don't crumble under temptation. That's rare today. And rarity is powerful. Women sense it immediately, not because of anything primal or mysterious, but because confidence without desperation is magnetic. It creates room, not pressure. Men sense it too. Respect flows toward the person who clearly respects himself. This is the beginning of what Gurdjieff called real individuality, not the version shaped by trends or impulses, but the version built from the inside out. And it starts with mastering the part of you that has mastered most men. Now, let's be real for a moment. This path isn't easy. Every instinct, every habit, every cultural message will pull you in the opposite direction. Modern life is practically engineered to keep you distracted, overstimulated, and drained. Companies profit from men who are constantly chasing the next quick hit of dopamine. Apps, ads, media, everything is designed to keep you hooked. A man who steps outside that system, even for a little while, becomes unpredictable. He stops clicking what they want him to click. He stops buying what they want him to buy. His attention becomes his own again. And attention is power. When a man channels his energy inward, he builds a reservoir instead of living in a drought. His mind becomes clearer because he's not being hijacked by cravings. His focus returns because he's no longer running on empty. His creativity expands because his internal engine is no longer overheated. And slowly, without forcing anything, he begins to wake up. The fog lifts. The autopilot switches off. Choices become choices again. This is what some traditions call self-remembering. The moment you realize you're not just reacting to life, but actually living it. And here's the part most men never experience. That reservoir of stored energy starts affecting everything around you. Your voice carries a weight people weren't used to hearing. Your presence commands attention without demanding it. You move through the world with a quiet intensity that others feel before they understand it. You're not louder. You're clearer. You're not tougher. You're steadier. You're not obsessed with control. You simply control yourself. And that alone creates a shift. Because when a man proves he can govern his impulses, he proves he can govern anything. His habits, his career, his goals, his relationships, his destiny. The discipline in one area becomes discipline everywhere. This is why ancient warriors abstained before battle, why artists practiced restraint during creation, why leaders throughout history emphasized self-control. They weren't depriving themselves, they were preparing themselves. They understood a simple truth. The man who can say no to himself can say yes to his purpose. And slowly, that energy, once scattered, becomes directional, focused, powerful. It becomes creativity, clarity, ambition, discipline, drive. It becomes the spark that wakes you up when life tries to lull you back to sleep. And in a world full of drifting men, a man who is fully awake stands out. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When a man begins to reclaim his energy, when he stops letting impulses steer the wheel, he starts noticing shifts not only inside himself, but in the world around him. It's subtle at first. People treat him a little differently. They listen more closely. They hold eye contact a beat longer. They respond to him with a level of seriousness they never showed before. Why? Because presence is magnetic. And presence comes from energy. Most men today are spread thin, overstimulated, underrested, drained before the day even begins. But a man who conserves his energy builds something rare. Inner density. It's not aggression. It's not intimidation. It's simply the vibe of someone who is anchored. Someone who isn't being pulled by invisible strings. This inner anchoring changes everything. Instead of being tossed around by temptation, he becomes the kind of person who can endure discomfort. Instead of quitting when things get difficult, he pushes through. And instead of needing validation, he develops self-respect. This alone separates him from 90% of men in the modern world. Gurdjieff taught that most men are unfinished beings, potential waiting to become actual. And he believed that one of the main reasons so many never reach their potential is because they constantly drain the energy required to build themselves. You can think of it like trying to build a house while someone is quietly removing bricks from the foundation. You're working hard, but you're not getting anywhere. You're improving, but you're not stabilizing. You look busy, but you're not becoming solid. When a man stops draining the energy unconsciously, he doesn't just feel better, he begins to build. Slowly, something internal starts to crystallize. Confidence becomes less of a performance and more of a natural state. His emotions become steadier. His mind becomes sharper. His decisions become clearer because they're not driven by cravings. And here's something many men won't admit. Cravings make you predictable. Predictability makes you easy to manipulate. But discipline makes you sovereign. This is why restrained men who've learned to manage desire instead of being managed by it, carry a type of independence that others can't help but notice. You see it in their posture, in their tone, in the way they move through the world like they're not trying to impress anyone. This independence is one of the biggest reasons people respect them. Respect doesn't come from ego. It comes from self-governance. A man who can control the hardest part of himself automatically earns credibility in everything else. Employers sense it. Friends sense it. Romantic partners sense it. Even strangers sense it. It's that quiet, undeniable signal of someone who isn't ruled by impulsive patterns. And just like energy compounding inside you, the rewards compound too. You become more patient, more focused, more intentional with your time, more selective with your relationships, more aligned with your purpose. Instead of chasing distractions, you chase goals. Instead of wasting mental bandwidth on fantasy or craving, you invest it in creation and progress. And the world, almost mysteriously, begins to respond differently. Opportunities arise, not because you're lucky, but because people naturally gravitate toward individuals who radiate clarity. Clarity is rare. Clarity is valuable. Clarity is leadership. But perhaps the biggest shift happens inside your identity. You start to see yourself differently. Not as a passenger in your life, but as the driver. Not as someone reacting to impulses, but as someone choosing his path. Not as a scattered individual, but as a unified one. This unity creates momentum. For the first time in many men's lives, they feel like they're actually building something, not just externally, but internally. Every day of discipline becomes a brick. Every moment of restraint becomes cement. Every victory over impulse becomes a reinforcement in the walls of the man you're becoming. And when this internal architecture becomes strong enough, it shows up everywhere. Your conversations become more meaningful. Your presence becomes more commanding. Your decisions become more deliberate. Your purpose becomes clearer. This is why disciplined men throughout history, philosophers, warriors, spiritual leaders, spoke about inner strength as the foundation of all achievement. They weren't obsessed with denial. They were obsessed with becoming. And becoming requires energy. When energy stays inside you long enough, it transforms you. When it's scattered, it never gets the chance. Now, let's talk about what happens socially, because this is the part modern men rarely understand. When a man becomes grounded, stable, and internally full, he becomes attractive in a way that has nothing to do with superficial charm. His presence becomes mysterious in the best way. Women feel drawn to him not because he's trying to impress them, but because he doesn't need to. Desire without desperation becomes magnetic. He listens without anxiously seeking approval. He speaks without over-explaining himself. He gives without expecting anything in return. That level of inner fullness is extremely rare, and therefore extremely compelling. Other men respond differently too. They sense strength. They sense intention. They sense someone who isn't moved by peer pressure or impulse. And this earns respect, even admiration, because deep down every man knows how difficult it is to master his own desires. But the social benefits are just the surface. The deeper reward is personal. A man who manages his impulses develops a willpower that extends into every part of life. When he decides something, he follows through. When he sets a goal, he hits it. When he chooses a direction, he walks it without doubting himself every 5 steps. His mind becomes less noisy. His emotions become less chaotic. His focus becomes sharper. He becomes, simply put, powerful. Not in an oppressive or dominant way, but in the way a mountain is powerful, unmoving, solid, centered. Power that doesn't shout. Power that doesn't beg. Power that doesn't depend on external validation. This is the kind of strength that shapes destinies. And the irony is that most men never tap into it because they believe discipline limits their freedom. But the truth is the opposite. Discipline creates freedom. Impulse destroys it. The man who can't say no is not free. He's being controlled by the strongest voice in his body. But the man who can say no, he becomes unstoppable. Because if you can conquer the strongest impulse in you, every other challenge becomes manageable. You can focus longer, work deeper, love better, think clearer, lead stronger, live fuller. This is why history remembers the men who cultivated discipline. Not because they were perfect, but because they took control of themselves. They worked from the inside out. They built the inner structure that the outer world eventually bowed to. And here's the truth. A world that drains men rewards the men who refuse to be drained. If you become one of those men, someone who guards his energy, someone who builds himself intentionally, someone who walks awake while others sleep, you will notice the shift. Life begins to bend toward you. People treat you differently. Respect comes naturally. Opportunities multiply. Clarity grows. Purpose becomes real. This is the hidden advantage. The edge almost no one talks about. The transformation most men never experience. But you can. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt something stir, something recognize itself, then you already know the path is calling you. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe if you want more content like this. And join the community of men who refuse to live life half asleep. They're not perfect. They're not superhuman. They're simply awake. And the world rewards the awake.